on now, just so that I don't forget to turn it on later, which I have done only once. And believe me, I won't do it again. Ulrich, you did that exam trial on the weekend on Saturday. How did you find it?
For the most part, fine. I had some, I can't remember which questions I had questions on, but I'll wait for feedback and just see how I did. But it wasn't too bad.
Okay. Well, did you find the whole system quite interesting?
I'm used to this type of system because when I studied at a previous campus, we did everything online. So this is what I'm used to.
Okay. Even your actual assessments were online,
Yeah,
exactly
even assessments,
like that as well.
Yeah, they just made the assessments extremely hard, so that even if you had a book with you, it didn't really help you.
Okay. Well, I marked the assessments yesterday, I think it was, those ones that were done on Saturday, and it was quite interesting. I think from a marking point of view, there's quite a lot of work to do on the system, because they tried to set up the questions that some of them were automatically marked, but of course the students do enter numbers. Sometimes they put an R in front of a rand value, sometimes they don't, sometimes they leave spaces between the thousands and sometimes they don't. And in the system you've got to program all those different variables into the system so that it will accept all of them. So that was actually quite interesting. So they might, I think what you've said is quite true. You're going to have to maybe work out a different way of testing the students so that the way that they answer is easier to mark on, easier to mark online than in that straight numeric way. Or otherwise they must just not use automatic marking, because it didn't work very well. But it was quite interesting. Yeah, VAT questions again. I'm just going to remind everybody right now for your exams, just make sure that you have practiced your VAT calculations.
Yeah, the one
taking the VAT forward, in other words, adding VAT on and going backwards. In other words, if it's got VAT in, going back to excluding VAT and go backwards and forwards until you know that your calculations, those, I don't even want to call them formulas because they're not really formulas. It's just common sense and logic in, am I adding 15% to an amount, or does an amount already include 15% VAT? And I now need to split it between the 100% of the base amount plus the 15% from the total that I've got. So you guys must just sit with that, because honestly at this stage of the game, and it's not only your module, it's the other first years as well, I don't know why that continues to be such a problem, because really what it requires is that you sit and you practice. And just understand it. You must just understand, what am I doing? I've got a base amount. I'm adding another 15% to it to get a new increased amount. And then if I've got to split that, that VAT, how do I go about splitting it between the excluding amount and the VAT amount into the two amounts? Anybody got any questions with that VAT? Any particular areas where you guys are battling with the VAT? Is there, where is it that you're battling with VAT specifically?
I'm not really struggling with that. I just want to know if we can go over an example like we did on that online test of Saturday, if we can do the output and input VAT calculation where we had to work it out with the example.
Okay, and I think I've already done a record. Haven't I already done a recording with that? And the recording that I posted today, let me just go and look on the, oh no, I can't go there now. I'll go and look on the other screen. Maybe it wasn't for you guys. There is a recording that one of the other lecturers did, also doing exactly that. He's taken a petty cash journal, and in that petty cash journal, he's done he's gone through just the VAT calculation. So I'll post that for you guys after the session as well. But Ulrich, also I'm interested to say, if you say you're not battling with them, but you want to see the calculations, then again, where is the mystery about that? I don't
I
know
think
how
it was.
you
Sorry,
feel.
I think it was just with how it was asked, because not how it was asked, but phrasing, because I struggle with phrasing, especially
Okay.
because so if I read something wrong, I do the calculation wrong. So that's my
Okay.
biggest thing I need to concentrate on.
Okay, there was a question, and I think it was that first question in that test that you did on Saturday, where they gave you an invoice and then you had to answer some questions on the invoice. Is that where you battled with the wording? You're saying you battle with the wording, the way that they ask the question, and then you're not sure what to do. Okay, all right. I think I've got that paper saved on here. So maybe what I'll do is I'll go and open that. I'll go and open it, and we'll go over that question that you did on Saturday, so I can show you there what the answer should have been. I think I know which question you're talking about. There was one that was a little bit tricky because they asked it also in a different way to what they usually ask the VAT questions. Okay, guys, so just quickly, this what I've got on the screen here, I've had quite a few messages from various students that are a little bit worried. They're not too sure of the exact format of the exam, or there's certain things about the exam that they're not sort of wondering about. So I just want to make sure. They were asking how long the exam is. So here it is. Here it's a 2-hour paper, and it is 120 marks. So I had about 3 or 4 students ask me that. This is in your module outline. I think this is on page 9 of your module outline. Okay, so you'll find this page called the assessments page in your module outline, and here it gives you exact details that you need to know. All learning units will be tested. You can take a calculator with you, and it's a closed book exam. Okay, so sit down on campus, closed book, 2 hours, 120 marks, which means that there's 1 mark per minute. And that tells you how fast you've got to work. In other words, that's the pace at which you've got to work. So a 5-mark question must only take you 5 minutes, etc. So you must, again, I know I told you guys last week when I spoke to you, but you must make sure that you're keeping track of how long you have been working for each question, so that you don't get muddled up. What else did everybody ask me? Okay, so according to my last PAS that I looked at, your exam starts at 8 o'clock on the 24th of November, which is next Friday. The other thing that I've had, query that I've had for a few students on the exam also, is because they don't usually go to a campus, and they have to go to a campus to write. Some of them were a little bit nervous and worried about whether they would know what to do when they got there. So when you go to the campus, make sure you go at least half an hour. You arrive at the campus at least half an hour before you're going to start writing. So you want to get there by 7:30. And then usually, I know on my local campus, which is in GQ, in the foyer, they've got a big TV screen where they have the module codes of all of the assessments that are going to be written on that particular day, with the room number next to them and any other details that the students need. So as you come into the foyer, look for the big screen and look for your code, and you'll find that. All the campuses might have different methods, but you will definitely be able to find somebody on campus to ask questions to help you. There'll always be a reception, and usually at exam time they have people standing in the foyer as well to greet students and make sure that they know exactly where to go. Danisha, if you've indicated your preference, then that's where you must go, because you obviously will go to whichever is your closest campus. So whichever campus you chose, when you filled in your form, then that's where they will have you listed. But again, if you're not sure, you've still got the whole of next week or tomorrow, then phone the campus and just ask somebody to double check for you if you're worried. But they will have you, if they will have your name on the list of whichever campus you indicated. Because obviously they leave that up to the student, because it's up, you guys know which campus you're able to get to. Okay. And unfortunately, the tutors aren't involved with that at all. That's all done by the admin office. Otherwise, just raise a ticket tomorrow, you know, those query tickets, and just tell them you're a little bit worried and you just want to double check that you are registered at whatever your campus name is, and somebody will check for you. That might even be the easier way to do it with the ticket. Okay. Okay, let me just see if I can open this. If you'll just, oh, Nalini, you did that method and it worked. Okay, yeah, I would suggest that that's probably the best way to go. So just give me a second while I go on to, while I just look for that paper that you guys did on Saturday and see if I can get it open. It was this one. Oh, actually, maybe let me just try and load it over here. I'm just going to see if I can add it to these shared files. It'll be easier than just, sorry guys, just give me a second. I'll try and load it here where we are. Then I don't have to leave the Blackboard screen. Will it allow me to open it here as well? Aha, there we go. Okay, so here's the, so this, the paper that you did on today morning was actually a previous test paper, and they use the test paper because test papers are usually 60 marks, and that was just so that it didn't take as long as a full, so basically it was, they set it up to take an hour. Okay, so for those of you who didn't see this question on Saturday, this was the question, the kind of like that question that the students had. So this is what we had. We had Simon makes chili sauces that he sells at the local market over weekends. He needed a few items, obviously for his business, and he kept the cash slip for his records. Study the cash slip carefully and then answer the questions that followed. So they gave it a mock invoice. So here's the name of the business that you purchased the goods from with their address and the business's VAT number and the business's telephone number. It's got the words tax invoice on it. It's got a unique invoice number and it's got the date on it. Okay, so these are all of the business's information from whom Simon made the purchase. But just take note, it doesn't on here have any of Simon's details. Okay, not his VAT number, his name or address of his business or anything else. So the total of the invoice is a 167 Rand 88. So here's all here's the items that Simon purchased. Here in this column, they told us that these amounts include VAT. So this is where I think some of the students on Saturday maybe missed. You've got to really read all the details that they've given you very carefully. So all of these amounts here are already including VAT, so that this balance due is including VAT, and these amounts are all including VAT. Then this is just the amount tendered and the amount of change that he got. And then here they've got the VAT detail. So they say the VAT rate was 15%. And VAT included on this invoice at 15% is 18 Rand 60. And then zero rated items, you see they've got the little star there and it says 0%. So here we've got two items with a star. So that tells us that those two starred items are zero rated. So there's 0 Rands worth of VAT charged on those two items. Okay. So this 142.60 over here is still including VAT, because this column over here, if you add these two amounts together at the bottom, so here they've got the items where 15% VAT was charged and the items where 0% VAT was charged. And if we add 142.60 plus 25.28, we get 167.88, which is the total of the including balance. So you need to analyze the information that they've given you like that, okay? Then the first question, can you see it at the bottom of the screen here, says, what is the VAT excluding amount according to the cash slip for the standard rated items? Okay, so they want to know the exclusive VAT amount. Do you guys understand that question? This, as they've worded it here, what is the VAT excluding amount according to the cash slip for the standard rated items? So they've given you here the including VAT amount. You have to add up the standard rated items, which is this 142.60. They basically gave us that. They told us that the VAT included in there is 18 Rand 60 cents. So what you had to do to get the answer to this 1.1 is take 142.60 and subtract that 18 Rand 60. So your answer should have been 124. And that is the VAT excluding amount according to these items in the cash slip for the standard rated items only. And that was for 3 marks. So I don't actually think that there were any students that I marked on Saturday that got that correct. Most of the students wrote 142.60 as their answer, which is the VAT including amount for the standard rated items. Do you guys, can you guys see the see that difference? Does that answer make sense to you now? Do you think you would have got that correct answer? Okay. So in that one, you actually didn't have to do any calculations, but you, yeah. Okay. So let's say, for instance, that they didn't give us this information over here. Let's say that that 18 Rand 60, they didn't tell us what the amount of VAT is. So we would have gone through our list, and let's say they never added them up. We would have gone through our list. We would have looked for standard rated items. So this also gives you practice in that's, remember, which I've told you is so important, those pages of your VAT categories. So we know that tomatoes, fresh tomatoes and fresh chilies, any fresh fruit and vegetable is going to be 0 rated. And they've told us by giving that little star there. White sugar is a processed food, that's definitely including VAT. White bread, we know, is including VAT. It's only white bread flour that is 0 rated. Okay, so white bread is standard rated, and white or brown flour is now 0 rated. Serviettes is a manufactured product, so that's standard rated. Vinegar is a processed product. It's not a fresh food, so that's standard rated. And Coca-Cola, we all know that that's a very processed food, so that's definitely standard rated. Okay, and we know we don't recognize out of any of these other items that any of those other items are zero rated. If that had been brown bread, then what would we have done with that, with this 1995 for bread, if this had said brown bread? Would we have included it in our list? That's right. Brown bread is zero rated. White bread standard rated, brown bread zero rated. So brown bread is considered a staple food. So that's why it has been zero rated, to encourage also to purchase brown bread, because brown bread is obviously, brown bread, and that would also include whole wheat bread, is obviously healthier for us than processed white bread. So the government is trying to encourage us to buy brown bread by making it a zero rated item, and discouraging us from eating white bread by making that a standard rated item. And then at least for those South African citizens who are on really what we call the bread line, that makes food cheaper for them. So that's the whole purpose. Okay, so do you get what we would have done? We would have added those other amounts together, and then because this invoice told us that it's including VAT, we would have got a total of 142.60. So 142.60 is then our including VAT amount. So who can type into the chat, what would our calculation be if we wanted to, yes, work out the excluding VAT amount? So what's our answer there? We had it just now. That would be our 124. And is there another formula that you can use? Nalini's used the formula or the calculation 142.60, which is the including amount, divided by 1.15 to give us the smaller, lower amount of the excluding VAT amount, 124. Remember always to check yourself. Including VAT amount is always going to be a higher value than the excluding VAT amount. So after you've done your calculation, always just double check, because sometimes we make a mistake and then without thinking, but you can double check yourself. Have I written down an amount that's higher than the amount I started with, or lower than the amount that I started with? So if they've asked for the excluding VAT amount, your answer must be lower than the amount that you started with. And if they gave you the excluding VAT amount and they asked you for the including VAT amount, then your answer should be higher than the amount that you started with. And then how would you work out what the actual rand value of the VAT in that instance would be from what we've done? Let's say we had the 142.60, and from 142.60 we wanted to work out the VAT amount. What would your calculation be? Yes, including minus excluding. So there we've already worked out the excluding. So we'd say 142.60 minus 124. And how else could we calculate the VAT? If we had our starting amount of 142.60 including, what other calculation could we do to work out just the VAT amount? Because sometimes when you've got a journal, they've given you the including VAT amount, and now you want to work out the amount of VAT to write in your VAT column of your journal. What would your calculation be? Work that out. Let me see if I can get this out. Work that out and see if you get the right answer. See if you get that. Okay, remember the answer we want is 18.60 Rand. So if we take 142.60 and we multiply that by 15%, we're going to get 21.39 Rand. So that can't be right. Remember, the 142.60 includes VAT, which means it's the 100% of the base amount that we started with. Then we added 15% VAT to our base of 100%. So the 142.60 actually represents 115% of our excluding VAT amount. So that's why we can't multiply it by 15% to get the VAT. And Danisha, no, that what you're saying there, can we take the amount less 15%? That's basically the same calculation that Ulrich mentioned above. Remember, we're going to use ratios. So 142.60 is the including VAT amount, which means it is already 115%. I want not 15% of 115%. I want the 15% VAT that is included in that 142.60. So if my 142.60 is 115 parts, if I take 142.60 and I divide it by 115, that will give me the rand value of 1 part or 1%. And then I multiply that by 15 because I want 15 parts of the 142.60, which is the VAT, and that's where we get the 18 rand. So have a look at our formula there in the chat. 142.60 divided by 115, because the 115 is at the bottom. Remember, that means divided by 115, and then we have multiplied by 15. So 142.60 equals 115%. If I've got 124, which is the excluding VAT, and now I want to add 15% of my exclude, listen to the language, I want to add 15% of the excluding amount on. Now what are we going to do to work out the amount of VAT that I must add to the excluding amount? And remember, our excluding amount is our base starting 100% before we've added on the VAT. And the VAT law says that I must add 15% of the rand value, of the base rand value, to my goods in order to arrive at the selling price. Yes, Nalini's, I can see she's been practicing. So remember earlier on what Nalini's formula was that she used when you've got, if you go back in the chat, if you've got the including, you take the 142.60 divided by 1.15 to go backwards to get to your 124 excluding. And if you've got your 124 excluding and you want to go forwards to your including, then you take the 124 multiplied by 1.15. Because when we multiply something by 1 point something, we're going to end up with a larger amount than we started out with. We'll end up with the 142.60. Okay. Or you could also have said 124 Rand times 15% equals 18 Rand 60. And then you can take 124 plus 18 Rand 60, and then we get our 142.60. So the reason that I wanted to type that in the chat box to show you that that's the only time where we'll multiply an amount by 15% to get the VAT is if the amount that we're multiplying is the excluding VAT amount. So only when it's the excluding VAT amount, 124, do we multiply it by 15% to get the VAT amount. If we've got the including VAT amount and you want the VAT, you have to multiply that by 15 over 115 to get your 18 Rand 60. Okay. Because remember, what we are ultimately doing is we are doing exactly this. We're taking an excluding amount, we're adding VAT, which is 15% of the excluding amount, and we're getting a new larger total, which is 124, 100%, plus 18 Rand 60, 15%, equals 142.60, 115%. So then you're going to use those proportions in your little calculations to either add the VAT, subtract the VAT, or work out the excluding amount or the including amount. But guys, even if you just take these three amounts that we've used today, 142.60, 18.60, and 124, and just go and sit down with a piece of paper and work it backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. Add the VAT, subtract the VAT, work out the 15%, and just keep doing it until you've got the hang of it. And remember also, practice, make sure that you're practicing the logic as you're doing that. If I've got an excluding amount and I'm going to add VAT, then logically the including amount must be a larger amount than I started out with. Okay. Anybody got any other questions that you want to ask me on this one? I can't remember what the other, let's just see what the other VAT questions were on this question. Oh, sorry, before I go on, any questions? And I know I've written this in your announcements lots of times, but you really just do need to practice. It's the only way you're going to get it right. And it will, when you've done it quite a few times, it will start becoming second nature, and you really need to understand it and understand the logic of it and practice it. Okay, so the tomatoes and the chilies have an asterisk next to the amounts. What does that asterisk indicate? You can type it in the chat box. Yes, that it was zero rated. And you'll see that if you, most of Checkers and Pick and Pay and Spar and all of these places, they use that method where if you look down the till slip, if you go grocery shopping or your mom goes grocery shopping, grab the till slip and look down the list of all the items and see if you can identify how the shop indicates which items are zero rated. And then at the bottom, they'll always have this little summary that you can then follow. And then for 4 marks, input VAT. So we know what's input VAT. What's input VAT as opposed to output VAT? If I'm a business, input VAT will be on which invoices that my business processes. Which invoices, on which invoices will input VAT be? So what was our chap's name here who's making the chili sauce? Simon. Will it be on his own invoices that he charges customers, or will input VAT be on the invoices of his suppliers? Yes, your creditors. Exactly. So for Simon, his supplier, so this shop that he's bought these goods from is his supplier. So the VAT on that invoice is input VAT for him. So it says here, input VAT may only be claimed on valid tax invoices. Okay, so a valid tax invoice, you've got the example in your textbooks. Where's the page number? On page 85. So state whether Simon will be allowed to use the cash slip to claim back input VAT from SARS, because remember, it has to be a valid tax invoice. So the shop that you purchase from can give you an invoice, but if it's not a valid tax invoice and SARS comes and does an audit on your business, They'll throw out all those invoices and they will make you pay that VAT back to them if it's not a valid tax invoice. So on this cash slip, is it a valid tax invoice? Can Simon claim that input back VAT from SARS? And then explain why he will be allowed to or why he will not be allowed to do that. So first of all, let's just go and have a look at the invoice and then just say yes or no. Is this a valid tax invoice? Yes, it is. Okay, and give me, you can each type in a reason. Why do you say it is a valid tax invoice? Because remember they said you have to give a reason. Yes, exactly. The company that he bought from is a registered VAT vendor. Yes, it's got the VAT registration number on it. And then what else? What other information does it contain that makes it a valid? I think there's something like 7 different items that must be present on an invoice for it to be a valid tax invoice. Yes, it must have a unique number. It must have the words tax invoice, the date, subtotal, yes. The name and address of the vendor must also be on there. The items must be listed, itemized, and quantity. You'll see here there's quantity 2 kilograms, 2 kilograms, 100 pack. That all shows that they've given us the cost. So all of those are present. So we can say, yes, it's a valid tax invoice. Yes, Simon can claim the input VAT back. And you've given us lots of reasons why. Okay. And then there was a question for 2 marks. Certain suppliers of goods and services are exempt from VAT. Just if you go to your VAT categories, 0 rated items are not the same as exempt items. 0 rated are items that we are charging 0% VAT on. I know it sounds funny, but that's the way it is. Whereas exempt items means there is no VAT, it's exempt from VAT, not even 0% VAT. So in your wording and when you're memorizing your lists, remember that the 0 rated and exempt are 2 different things. So certain suppliers of goods and services are exempt from VAT. Renting a private house or dwelling as a private residence, not for holiday accommodation, because that's a different kettle of fish, is an example of an exempt supply, and list 2 other items that are exempt supplies. Would you have been able to do that? Life insurance, yes. So make sure you say life insurance and not just insurance, because short-term insurance, in other words, if you're insuring your household items or your cell phone, that's a standard rated supply. And public transport. So Ulrich, if you say public transport, what about if I, what shall I use the word qualify? We need to qualify that. In other words, define that a little bit better for me. Public transport on what type of transport? Because that's what's important. Bus, taxi, any basically road transport, vehicles. Yes, any vehicles that transport, trains. So I shouldn't use the word, yeah, I suppose we can say road or ground transport is, oh, shame, Onissimo, you can't hear me. You others can hear me because you're answering the questions, right? Okay. Maybe try and reconnect. See if that helps. So the reason why I'm just giving you that difference between road, why I'm specifying you must state, you can't just say transport, you must say road, or is because air travel, if you go in an aeroplane, that is standard rated because that's considered a luxury item. So remember again, the only purpose of exempt VAT items are again to benefit people, the citizens of South Africa, with certain items that are necessities. And obviously taxi and bus and trains, that's considered necessities. Even if you took any kind of a taxi. So passenger transport, but you must state it's passenger transport by road or rail, etc., because we must specify that it doesn't include air travel. What other things are exempt? Life assurance, and remember interest, financial services or interest is also an exempt item. And then any goods that are sold by charities, yes, good, donations, sold by a non-profit organization. What other things? Body corporate levies, educational services, school fees, childcare services. Those are also examples of exempt items that aren't listed in your textbook. And then this was a good one. Calculate the output VAT. So output VAT will be on the items that Simon exactly, or if yes, that's the idea. The items aren't just randomly chosen, they're very specifically chosen to benefit the public. Calculate the output VAT. So output VAT will be the VAT that Simon charges on his outgoing goods, which will be his, yes, his sales. If Simon sells 120 bottles of chili sauce to a local restaurant at 45 Rand each, including VAT, so 45 Rand is the including VAT selling price. Okay. Assume that chili sauce is a standard rated item because it's a processed item, so we understand it would be. And then remember to show all of your work in. So what would the output VAT, so remember it's the actual VAT amount that they're looking for for the total sale of 120 bottles of chili sauce at 45 Rand each. See if you can type that calculation into the chat box to work out the amount, total amount of output VAT. Did you battle with that one? It's funny how sometimes our brains just close down on us when we know that we know the answer. Ugh. And remember, it's the VAT that they want, the amount of the VAT. Anybody having a bash? I'll give you another minute. 120 times 45, so that will give us our total sales. But remember, the 45 Rand is including VAT. And we said earlier on, I don't know if you were online with us, Sean, if not, just go and listen to the recording, that we can't, if we've got an including VAT amount, we can't multiply it by 15% to get the VAT. That doesn't work. Okay, so Nalini said 120 times 45 Rand is 5,400 Rand. That's the total amount including VAT. And they wanted to know what's the Rand value of the output VAT. So you've got the first step, that's the first step, calculating the total amount including VAT. And now how much output VAT is there in the 5,400 Rand? Remember, these are the calculations you would have to do if you had to draw up Simon's cash book receipts or his debtor's journal, and you had to record the sale and then separate out the VAT. Okay, and then there's one more step. What have you calculated there, Nalini? 54 divided by 1.15 equals, what's that amount? 469,565. That is the what amount? It's not the VAT amount. Yes, it's the excluding VAT amount. So one more step. You're nearly there. Anybody got it? To get just, you want just the VAT. Yes. So how did Nobisitu get that? Yes, you took the 54 minus, yes. Yes, that's it. So the whole calculation, if you did it all in one, is 120 bottles times 45 Rand each equals 5,400 including VAT. And then I multiply that by 15 over 115 to get my 704.35 output VAT amount. No, didn't you get it right, Ulrich? You got it right, 54 times 15 over 115. Oh, you mean for Saturday? Yeah. It's just so easy. Remember, it's not really complicated. They haven't made that complicated because everybody in every little cafe and small business all over the place that are registered VAT vendors, they do these VAT calculations every day. And I know you guys stress, and the only reason you get the calculations wrong is because and it's universal. I don't understand it. The students are terrified of VAT calculations and they're really not difficult. Exactly, exactly. You guys stress and you overthink. It's not, yeah, just remember it's making, I know I'm the first culprit of making mountains out of molehills. So I know exactly how you feel. Okay, everybody follow that. So and remember, that was for 3 marks, which means you've got 3 minutes. So that should have taken you 3 minutes. So if you look at that calculation that I wrote down there, if I had have been handwriting that out and I practiced my work and I knew it, it would have taken me less than 60 seconds to write that down and calculate it on my calculator, which means I would have saved up 2 marks, 2 minutes to use in maybe another question that was a bit more difficult. So that's why it's important that you know these things like the back of your hand, because you have to get it finished in the time given, and you actually want to do it quicker than that so that you save up minutes for those other questions that are going to be more difficult. And here's another interesting one. Calculate the input VAT Okay, so that's, what did we work out? 704.35. That's the amount of VAT that Simon is going to have to pay to the receiver of revenue at the end of the month in which he sold those 120 bottles of chili sauce. Because remember, the VAT does not belong to his business. He is only collecting it on behalf of SARS. So all VAT registered vendors are basically acting as tax collectors for SARS. They charge their customers VAT, collect the VAT, and then pay it over to SARS. That's what output VAT is. But then on your input VAT, those invoices, you calculate all the VAT that you paid to other businesses during the month, and the receiver must pay that back to you. He must refund you that VAT. So this restaurant that purchased these 120 bottles of chili sauce from Simon how much input VAT are they going to claim on the purchase of the chili sauce? And remember to show all of your workings. So let's have a look at what the calculation is going to be. The restaurant is going to buy 120 bottles of chili sauce at 45 Rand each. So his invoice is going to be for 5,400 Rand. Am I right? Now, how much VAT is included in the 5,400 Rand? Which is then going to be the input VAT that he's going to claim back from the receiver. Remember, the 5,400 is an inclusive VAT amount, which means the 5,400 equals 115%. So we can't just multiply it by 15 because it's already 115%. So what is our calculation to work out the VAT on an including VAT amount? So that will be 704.35. Do you agree with me? So look what's happened. Simon paid the receiver of revenue 704.35 output VAT, and the restaurant that purchased the chili sauce is going to claim back 704.35 from the receiver. So Simon will pay the receiver the 704.35, and the receiver will pay the restaurant 704.35. Do you guys follow that? Remember, the words VAT stand for value added tax. So what's going to happen? The restaurant is going to use those bottles of chili sauce to make this wonderful dish that they're going to sell for 120 Rand to their customers. So when the restaurant uses that chili sauce, he's using it to add value to make an item that's worth a lot more than the chili sauce that he first purchased, which means that the output VAT that the restaurant will then pay the receiver, let's say he charges 120 Rand a meal, including VAT, then his 120 Rand times 15 over 115 means that on each meal that he sells, he's going to pay the receiver 15 Rand 65 output VAT because he's added value. Okay, everybody's gone very quiet. Were you a bit confused because the amount of output VAT that Simon paid and the amount of input VAT that the restaurant claimed was exactly the same Rand value? Just think about that and go over those calculations on your own and make sure that you understand that whole process. But remember that value added principle, which means that the restaurant is going to use that chili sauce to add value to make another higher value product, and then he'll pay output VAT to the receiver on that higher value. So the receiver doesn't lose out because the receiver will then get the increased VAT paid to him on the higher priced meal. I'm not going to, I don't know if you guys want to go through this question 1.7 now, or if you want to, maybe you can just read it and then you can try it on your own. We've already gone an hour this evening. Do you guys want to have a look at question 1.7, or do you want to try it on your own? Calculate the gross profit in Rand made by Simon on the sale in 1.5 above if it costs him 15 Rand excluding VAT to produce 1 bottle of chili sauce. So remember, added value. He's selling a bottle of chili sauce for 45 Rand, but it only, including VAT, but it only costs him 15 Rand excluding VAT to produce 1 bottle of chili sauce. And then the restaurant is buying a bottle of chili sauce for 45 Rand and is using that chili sauce to make a meal that they're going to sell for 120 Rand. So we've gone from a cost of 15 Rand to a selling price of 45 Rand to a selling price of 120 Rand. So that's the added value. It's what we call the value chain. As value gets added, as one person purchases an item and uses it to make something else, and so on and so forth. Do you guys want to have a bash? Have a bash. It's not, have a look. We've already got all the Rand values calculated. Calculate the gross profit. So how do we calculate gross profit? What's your little formula for gross profit? Yeah, I think I'm following you. Selling price is equal to cost price plus profit. So if I want to work out the profit, so they've asked us to calculate the profit. So sales profit equals selling price minus cost price. Exactly right. Okay, so that's the first thing that you've got to work out. They've asked you to calculate the gross profit. So first sort out in your mind what my calculation is going to be. So we've got that. Profit is equal to the selling price minus the cost. So now we just need to find all those amounts in our calculation. So we want to know the selling price. Okay, so they said calculate the gross profit that Simon makes on 1 bottle of chili sauce. So what's the selling price excluding VAT of 1 bottle of chili sauce? Work that out for me first. What is the selling price excluding VAT of 1 bottle of chili sauce? That was the 45 Rand that they gave us. Have a look over here on question 1.5. 45 Rand each, including VAT. So we want to, what's the excluding VAT? Yes, Ulrich and Nalini have got it. There's our calculation. 45 divided by 1.15 because we want the smaller value, 39.13. Or you could also have said 45 multiplied by, what do we want? We want the excluding VAT times 100 over 115. So either 45 divided by 1.15 or 45 times 100 over 115. Those will both give us 39 Rand 13, excluding VAT. So now we know what the excluding VAT selling price is. We know what Simon's excluding VAT cost is. So how much is his profit for 1 bottle of chili sauce? And we're using excluding VAT amounts because remember the VAT belongs to SARS. So we always take the VAT off from our sales. Only the excluding VAT amount of sales belongs to my business. Yes, perfect. There you go. So this was a good question to practice with, guys, because it's helping you to see in like a real practical question how we have to subtract VAT, add VAT, multiply. Can I claim it back? Am I paying it to the receiver? Has going through that question helped you a little bit with your understanding your VAT calculations a little bit better? You'll definitely get them. I mean, there'll be journals that you'll have to fill in. I'm not sure that I follow you, Ulrich. This question will always be VAT exclusive. Do you mean the sale. So when a business, like 45 Rand is his selling price, but that's the including VAT selling price. But remember, we said that we act as tax collectors for the receiver. So what was the VAT on? Only 39 Rand 13 of the 45 Rand belongs to the business. So we don't take it into account when we're working out our profit, because that it doesn't belong to us. So 45 minus 39.13. So the 5 Rand 87, which is the VAT on a bottle of sauce, that belongs to SARS. It doesn't belong to Simon. So we collect 45 Rand from the customer. We take 5 Rand 87 and we put it in our VAT output column, because we're going to pay that to the receiver. And in our sales column, we only write 39 Rand 13. So the cash amount that we collect is 45 Rand. But my actual income revenue for my business is 39 Rand 13, because the 5 Rand 87 is going to be paid directly to SARS. Remember, I've told you in your journals, that very first column, your main column, whether it's a bank column, if it's a cash book, if it's creditors control or debtors control in one of your credit journals, that always includes VAT, because the transaction between us and our suppliers and our customers always include VAT if we're registered VAT vendors. So we're paying them including VAT, they're paying us including VAT amount. So the cash that changes hands is always including VAT. And then on the right-hand side of the main column, we take the VAT out and we put it in either the input or the output VAT column, because that's either going to SARS or we're going to claim it back from SARS. And then in the sales revenue column is the excluding VAT, or in our cost column, whether it's inventory or whether it's an expense, that's excluding VAT. What are the exceptions to that rule in our cash book payments? In which examples in our cash book payments will we not remove VAT from an item that was sold to us by a VAT vendor, where the amount in our main bank column is going to be exactly the same as the amount in our expense column? When will that happen? Remember, think about your VAT categories. Yes, non-allowable or zero rated or non-allowable items. So if it's a zero rated item, there is no VAT to subtract. So whatever the cost is that we paid, that is the cost. And if it's a non-allowable item, that means it's a standard rated item that we purchased, but because we're going to use it for entertainment purposes or some other personal use, we're not allowed to claim the input VAT back. So the full amount must also go into our expense column. Okay, so don't forget that. Okay, guys, has this helped you this evening? Okay, that's good. It's always good to practice like this with your calculations. So that's good. Okay. I'm so glad you managed to get back on Asimo, and that you could help, you could hear or at least follow what we were doing. Okay, perfect. So there was another document that I was going to go through, the rest of the document that I started going through with you last week when we had Cynthia on the call with us, but I'm just going to post that for you. I can't remember if I did already. I think I might already have posted it for you. It's just got some other hints and tips about completing the exam. Just things that you must, again, remember. All those little things, that the common errors that students make, and those little things that catch us every time. I've just made a list of those, so I'll post that in your announcements for you as well. Okay. Has anybody got any other questions that you wanted to ask me this evening? This is our last collab because you write next Friday, so this will be the last live collab that we have. But remember, I'm sitting at my desk marking all day, every day from now until everybody's finished writing exams, because my third year's already wrote on Monday. So any questions that you've got at any time, send them in a message or an email while you're busy revising. Anything you need help with, and I'll be glad to help you. Okay, no other questions? Or what questions have you got for me? I'm sure you must have something. Question 2 of this paper, question 2, just the first line. Complete the table below in your answer book by calculating the missing amounts. Calculate all amounts to 2 decimal places and remember to show your workings. Oh, okay, this is a good one. Yeah, this is also one that the students get muddled up with, our famous cost price and gross margins. Okay, so let's have a look at these. And remember, when it's markup on cost price, then our cost price, why is that so big? I don't want that to be so big. Our cost price is then going to be the 100%. And if it's gross, 25% gross margin, if we use the terminology gross margin, then that means that our the 25% is 25% of the selling price. And then the selling price is going to be the selling price is going to be 100%. Okay. So let's have a look at this first one. They said it's 25% markup on cost. So that means we've taken our cost price, we are adding 25%. Sorry, I just quickly want to make this a little bit smaller so that it will fit. Okay. So they've told us that the markup, in other words, remember we use the words markup or gross margin, that means profit. So profit, markup, gross margin, all different words for the same Rand value. So if my profit is 25%, but they've said it's 25% of my cost price, that means my cost price is going to be 100%. So that means cost plus profit equals selling. So remember, that's our formula, cost plus profit. Where's my equals? Equals selling. So that means for the first one, we've got 100 plus 25 equals 125. So this 862.50 is 125%. That's the very first thing that you've got to do. Just sort out what are the proportions going to be for the calculation. Now it's easy. The amount that they've given you, 862.50, is 125%. So we want, first of all, we want the cost price. So you have to start with the amount that you've got. So 862.50 multiplied by, and I want the cost price, which is 100 parts of 125 parts. Where's my calculator gone? 862.50 divided by 125 times 100 equals 690. And that's the cost. Okay. Yes, Ulrich, your calculation would have been correct as well, because we are, again, it's exactly the same as an including VAT amount. This would be exactly the same as if the VAT was 25%. So the selling price is 125% and we want 100. So if we take 862.50 divided by 1.25, we'll get the 100%. And then to calculate the profit, you take 862.50 minus 690 and you'll get your profit. And if you wanted to calculate the profit as a calculation, you could also have said 862.50 times 25 parts over 125 parts. That gives us 172.50. And that would then be your profit. Okay. So what's going to happen in this next one? This one says 25% gross margin. So the profit is 25%. So the 25% goes here because they've told us the profit is 25%. But this time it's 25% of what? It's not 25% of the cost price, which this one was. That was 25% of the cost price. This one is profit is 25% of the selling price. So it's 25% of the selling price, which means that the selling price is going to be my base 100%. So our formula, cost plus profit equals selling price, will never change. So now we've got something plus 25 equals 100. So what's going to go here? Something plus 25 equals 100. Yes. So now we must put that's going to be 75%. So our cost is 75% of the selling price and the profit is 25% of the selling price. So cost plus profit, 75 plus 25 equals 100% of the selling price. Now they've given us the cost price, 36,750. So that's the only rand value that we've got. So we will write down 36,750. And if we want to know what the rand value of the profit is, we're going to say 36,750 multiplied by, I want 25 parts. I want to know what 25 is. So 25 of the 75 parts. So calculator 36,750 times 25 over 75. And that will equal 12,250. The profit. It's the 25. We've worked out the 25. We said 25 parts of the 75 parts. And that gives me my profit rand value. So now I've got 36,750 profit. Sorry, cost price plus 12,250 profit equals, so you're going to go 36,750 plus the 12,250 to work out your selling price here. 36,750 plus 12,250 plus equals 49,000. Okay, so who wants to have a bash at this last one? So again, we read here, this last one is 25% markup on cost. So again, our markup or our profit or our gross margin is 25%. So under the profit column, we're going to write 25% because the profit is 25%. But the next question is 25% of what? Is it 25% of the cost price or is it 25% of the selling price? 25% of the cost price. So that means that this column is my base 100%. So now I know what the Rand value of the 25% is. So now that I know that, I can work out what the Rand value of 100% is. And again, I'm going to use my same method, 875, which is the Rand value that I know, multiplied by, and I want, what's the proportion that I want? That must go at the top, multiplied by 100 over 25. So our calculation is going to be 875 times 100 over 25, 3,500. Sorry, that was 100. I've put an extra 0 in there for no good reason other than that's a typo. 100 over 25 equals. So you see the method that I've used, and you will never ever get these questions wrong if you do that. Look at the information they've given you. What is the percentage of the profit or markup or GP? You write that percentage down in the profit column, and then you decide, is that 25% of the selling price or is that 25% of the cost price? Markup on cost will be 100. Markup on selling or gross profit, that will be 25% of the selling price. And then whichever one it's 25% of, that's where you write the 100%. And then you've just got to use your fractions really, because if you know that 862 is 125 and you want to know what is 25 of 862, we take 862 divided by 125 multiplied by 25. And again, guys, just practice, practice, practice. And do them over and over again until the penny starts dropping and you start being able to do them quicker and getting them correct. Okay with that one? Did you guys follow that calculation? Okay. And remember this one here, these calculations for this question and your calculations for those VAT, I wrote them in those little tutorial letters in your announcements. So go back and print them out, do a screenshot and print them out. You've got all of those there as well. And then you can obviously watch this video again to practice with those. Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much, guys, for taking part. It makes a huge difference, and I'm sure it's helped you to do all of this practicing. Any previous exam have an answer sheet to practice on? All the current, no answer sheet. Sure, no, I'm afraid they don't, and we're not allowed to publish the memos or the answer sheets for previous exam papers. That's an IIE policy. So even if there's a past paper and one of the lecturers asks for the memo, they won't give it to us. So unfortunately, we're not allowed to give you memos for past exam papers. And I know it can get frustrating because, then you're not sure whether you got it correct or not. If you're in doubt, if there's a question that you're in doubt and you're not sure about, you can always send it to me and just say, ma'am, did I get this right? Or I obviously can't mark whole exam papers for anybody because I'm busy marking all of the actual exam papers now that have been written. But if there's just one question or a section that you want me to check for you, I'll happily do that for you if you send it to me in a message or an email. Okay. Okay, guys, it's been lovely having you this whole semester. You've been a really nice interactive class and you guys have done super well. And I'm crossing all my fingers and toes for you for a nice paper for next Friday. and I look forward to marking your papers. And I'll try and give you some more revision exercises and stuff in your announcements over this next week. But I also don't want to flood you with too much because I don't want to overwhelm you at this stage. Okay, guys. Thank you very much. It's been lovely to chat to you guys. So I will stop the recording.